What's going on, everyone? I'm going to cut to the chase. Here's a grain to glass video on one of the best easy drinking beers that I've ever done. The Betty Blonde. It's not my recipe, but it's a good one. Stay tuned if you want to see how it's made. Let's go!
Party time brews. This song ain't no good, but we got nothing to lose.
I'd like to start this one off by saying thanks to Keith from Old Biddies. He hooked me up with some pale malt at the last second, and without that, I wouldn't have been able to get this batch done right. Thanks, Keith. And now on to the brew day. And for this one, it was Canada Homebrew Day, so I invited people out to do a brew with me. Carl answered the call, and he did the porter, and I did the blonde. I'm not going to go too deep into the porter, but you can get the recipe in the description below. And for this recipe, it's not very tricky. We're going to start with 4 kilograms of pale malt, and then just add 200 grams of honey malt and another 200 grams of light crystal malt. We get that all together, pop her into the grain mill, give it a good old grind, and then the mandatory grain grab. I then dumped it into the grain father, stirred it up, and this one actually had a pretty good consistency. In the batch I used about 16.8 liters of water to 4.4 kilograms, which leads to about a 3.8 liquor to grist ratio. I put the rest of the pieces into the grain father and set it to 65 for an hour. Time to check in on Carl. For the porter, Carl was using the Anvil Foundry 6.5 gallon system. This system actually looks pretty good. I'd like to get a review of it or something sometime, but for now the big thing that I liked about it was that there's a simple switch that you can switch between 120 and 240. You'd be able to do small batches super fast at 240. Okay, and I lied, I'll touch on the porter a little bit. It's kind of complicated recipe, and this is kind of why I didn't do it, but it has 3 kilograms of maris otter, 0.35 kilograms of Munich 2, 0.35 kilograms of Vienna, 0.33 kilograms of caramel 20, 0.2 kilograms of pale chocolate, 0.2 kilograms of carafa 2, and 0.1 kilograms of chocolate malt. It has 10 grams of Warrior, 14 grams of EKG, and 14 grams of Sasquatch, topped up by an Escarpment Labs Irish Ale pouch. Goddamn. And I guess back to my brew. Here's another mandatory shot, the pulling of the grain basket. Once it was up, I started the Sparge and heated it up to 100 degrees for the boil. Nothing was too fancy for this grain bill, so she filtered through the grain bed nice and easy. As it was heating up to the boil, I measured out the Willamette hops, 28 grams for 60 minutes, 14 grams for 20 minutes, and 14 grams of flame out. Okay, it might be Willamette. Oh yeah, it came to a boil. Then added the hops at the right times and the right amounts. But at this point, I'm sad to announce that Carl had beaten me. His was already in the fermenter, and he was on the cleanup while I wasn't quite done. But not too much later, I was filling up my fermenter. It was a little bit darker than I expected, but I guess that's what happens when you mess with the crystal. I threw on the spunding valve and fermented it at somewhere between 5 and 10 psi. Didn't really pay much attention. And as you can see by this fermentation profile here, it started out at about 1050 and ended up at about 1013 for a 4.9% alcohol. And just a quick note, I was fermenting under pressure and didn't compare the wrap pill to an actual hydrometer reading, so the percentages might be slightly out, but it seemed to work pretty good anyway. Okay, so we're at review time. This is the Betty Blonde, designed by Curtis Van Mark. Pretty much used the exact same recipe. Apparently he owns a homebrew shop in New Westminster or something like that, BC, and it was a very well rated homebrew shop, so good for you, Curtis Van Mark. Either way, let's get into the Betty Blonde. So first off the bat, I poured it a little while ago, and she's still kind of holding some foam there. So it looks good. It's kind of cascading off the side walls, and that's a good thing. Going for a whiff. Before we whiff, even though I already did, there's the clarity. It's pretty good. Whiffing again. Smells kind of malty. You're not getting any strong hops or anything off that, but we wouldn't expect that in the blonde, I do not think. Maybe we would, but not this one. Going for a taste. Right off the bat, it is a really good beer. That's all you really need to know, so feel free to leave now. But either way, we have the tasty beer. It's a little bit more bitter than I was expecting, although that's really good. I'm lost for words there. So yeah, the hoppiness isn't like kicking my ass or anything like that. It's only about 2 ounces of Willamette in there, so, or Willamette or whatever you want to call it. So it's not too bad. Very good. I could see how part of the recipe was adding tea to this beer. I think they wanted like seven tea bags or something, would have been another kick to it. I didn't use that part of it. It was optional, so I didn't go with it because frankly, because I was scared of adding a bunch of tea, but maybe I'll try it sometime. But this does have a slight tea flavor, maybe to do with the hops that they used in it, or I used in it, or is in the recipe. But yeah, it's good. There's really not too much more I can say about that. So Let's go for all the tasting stuff. So we got the clarity was good. The aroma smells like a light, easy drinking beer. Came in at around in between 4.5% and 5%. I wasn't super precise on that, so yeah, somewhere around there. It'll work. Mouthfeel. Feels pretty good. It's well attenuated. It's not too. It's definitely kind of a medium, maybe medium body to it. It's not super dry, but it's not super sweet. So that's a good thing. And then overall impression, I'm definitely brewing this beer again, so yeah, I'm gonna go with it again. Let's have another little sip and then call it a day. If you're interested in more videos like this, you might as well check this one out here. If you haven't already, feel free to subscribe. There's a button down here somewhere. But either way, it is a good beer. Go with the Betty Blonde. Curtis Van Mark, you did an awesome job.